Hello again. I'm sure that most viewers will be at least vaguely aware of the drive to decolonise statues, museums, street names and anything else that left-wingers and black militants can lay their hands on. A lot of people, though, may not be aware of the struggle for the hearts and minds of school children in this country and the supposed need to ensure that they study the right kind of literature. Whenever I hear of plans like this, I'm irresistibly reminded of those bonfires of books which one remembers seeing from photographs of the Third Reich in the 1930s, when books written by the wrong sort of people were taken from the libraries and burned in the streets. The present move is part of the same cultural phenomenon, the desire to make sure that people's minds are shaped in the correct way and not contaminated by the wrong views. Before going any further, we might ask ourselves why we read novels at all. I think for most of us they allow us to escape from our ordinary life, the familiar and drab world around us, and to experience vicariously something new and exciting that we wouldn't encounter in real life. That's why we enjoy James Bond books and also War and Peace. It's why Harry Potter books appeal to us, and so do the works of Charles Dickens. We get to explore new worlds and perhaps ask ourselves how we would react if we were in them ourselves. Good writing, that's novels, poetry and plays that we regard as literature, are marked by their extraordinary use of the English language and also by the themes which they explore. It takes a while, 50 or 60 years, to see if any literature will pass the test of time, and it's not a passing craze. That's why we treasure books like those by Charlotte Bronte and Jane Austen or Anthony Trollope. They were written a couple of centuries ago, but the language is exquisite and they allow us to enter wholly unfamiliar worlds. They also explore theses and themes with some relevance to our own world, ideas of loyalty and betrayals, love and hate, dysfunctional families and so on. That's why we get young people to study at school classic works like those by Jane Austen, Mary Shelley and so on, the Brontes. It's good for them, it's good for their minds. It's also really, really good for their use of English, because as they study those books and see how English is used in good literature, it helps them to be able to use the English language themselves, to mobilise it for their own use. In other words, studying good literature is really good for children's minds, developing children, that is. The problem which some activists have, and they've been encouraged by the publisher of Penguin Books, is that a lot of this literature was written by white people and it doesn't feature black characters. This, it is suggested, makes it impossible for a black school pupil to identify with the books they study at GCSE, and therefore they lose interest and don't do as well in the exam as white pupils. I give a link in the description of this video to a site run by Penguin Books called Lit in Colour, which explores how to remedy this supposed problem. In view of what I was saying about the role of fiction and the concept of literature, let me give you one or two quotations from this website. A teacher in Lincoln says, "The demographic of our students and local community is almost exclusively white British, resulting in a lack of knowledge and understanding of anybody from minority ethnic backgrounds." Well, this may well be true, but it has no relevance at all to English literature, which is what this Penguin Books website purports to be about. What about this? "The palpable tension in the class suggested to me they were not used to talking about race in this personal and confrontative manner." Now, why the deuce people should be talking in a personal and confrontative manner about English literature is not clear to me. This quote, though, is from a black teacher, which might go some way towards explaining how you manage to introduce palpable tension and confrontation into a discussion on literature. What about this? "Anti-racist education puts a strong emphasis on giving authority to the lived experience of those who have experienced racism, and it is important to offer pupils the opportunity to speak and to believe them when they do. On the other hand, it's also important not to treat individual pupils as ambassadors for the racial group to which they belong, and not to demand that they educate you and your students, as several teachers responding to our survey also identified. This is nothing more than political propaganda, and should have nothing whatsoever to do with English literature. These are all teachers speaking, by the way, and Penguin Books are offering to hold their coats while they row about race with their local authority. Sometimes those writing about this and being quoted on this dreadful website seem to have no knowledge at all of literature. We read this. For example, Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights is racialised as other, which is an important part of his characterisation in the way that others react to him. As an orphan from Liverpool, he might be black, mixed race, or Irish. The idea that Heathcliff might have been black is utterly mad. Anybody reading Wuthering Heights would know this, of course. By uncanny chance, I just happen to have a copy here. And I read from chapter 3. Heathcliff stood near the entrance in his shirt and trousers with a candle dripping over his fingers and his face as white as the wall behind him. His face as white as the wall. Elsewhere it's mentioned that his face goes white with shock. He's obviously not black or mixed race. The comments on Wuthering Heights on that website by Penguin Books have been written by somebody who has not even read the book about which he or she is talking. There is something truly terrifying going on here, with the teaching of English literature now being criticised by and interfered with by people who have not even bothered to read the books they are criticising. This is a fearful state of affairs, and it's set to cause great harm and disruption to our children's education.